Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the terrific pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Shipman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm great, Brian. That was one dandy weekend of racing we just had. You think we can duplicate it again this weekend?
Not bad at all, sir. I was enthralled with the doings in the desert, and then we saw South Florida light up the afternoon. A good weekend indeed. And yeah, next weekend promises to be another one as we march ever closer, Matt, to the first Saturday in May. Let's jump into what we saw last weekend. The first thing I think we need to mention, Matt, is I'll give you one word: Mendelssohn.
All the talk and all the discussion and all the waiting for Mendelssohn, and he did not disappoint, my friend. As you know, I've liked that horse, and boy, he's got some resume now, Brian. The Breeders' Cup Turf. He won on the synthetic this year in his 2018 debut, and that performance in the UA Derby on the dirt. Wow, Brian, 18.5 length victory in a track record time. We got a good one coming from Europe for the Kentucky Derby for the first time.
I think it's safe to say, Matt, we have the best runner from the Dubai, the UAE Derby over there, Maidan, that we've ever had. I think that's pretty certain. The half-brother to Grade 1 winners into mischief and the multiple champion, Beholder. Mendelssohn obviously likes dirt. That was the question. We didn't expect him not to like dirt, but first race on dirt was a wow performance. Now, Matt, he was pushed out of the gate. Ryan Moore got into him early, wanted that lead, got it, worked to get it, and then the race was pretty much over there. I'm always a bit skeptical of races where no one comes and then they just fall away, and in this case, fall farther and farther away. Obviously, it was a very good performance from Mendelssohn, but I can't imagine him working out the same kind of trip in Kentucky. It's going to be different. He's going to have to come over again. There's going to be 20 horses. Churchill Downs. I don't think he blitzes to the lead. I think he probably finds some dirt kicked in his face. I don't want to dismay anyone or dishearten anyone that thinks Mendelssohn is the real deal and the next Kentucky Derby winner, Matt, because he may be. But it's going to be a little bit tougher come Derby Day.
No doubt. But just like everybody else that we've talked about and we'll be talking about, the Kentucky Derby. There's only one Kentucky Derby. There's only one race in our country with 20 horses. It's a whole new thing for all of them. And it is interesting that with talking about the size of the field, because most of the time with the Europeans, you'd expect them to have run against big fields of 16 and 18 and stuff. But that hasn't been the case with Mendelssohn just by coincidence. I think his biggest field was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf.
And in that race, by the way, he did move through the pack a little bit. He wasn't always on the lead. He was stalking and made the move at the right time. This time he made the move and he was already on the lead. So it was over, and it was over. Wow, was it over. Near 20-length win, track record time in the UAE Derby at 1 mile 3/16. Can't wait for the $3 million man. I think we call him the $3 million man. He's no longer a boy. Now he is a middle May foal, so he's younger than most of his foes that will be in the Kentucky Derby. But let's call him the $3 million man from here on out, Matt.
Yeah, and like you said in your weekly article on at Horse Racing Nation, it's not often you can expect a $3 million purchase to turn out to be a good deal. But I think in Mendelssohn's case, that's going to be.
Even if he never raced again, God forbid, even if Mendelssohn never raced again, I think he's worth the $3 million every penny, and it can probably only go up from here. So look out, America. Here comes Mendelssohn. Now, one of the horses that will offer serious competition to him on the first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs, we saw again in South Florida on Saturday, Matt, Audible. We wanted to see what Audible would do to back up that big performance 8 weeks earlier in the Holy Bull. Audible didn't race against a lot of competition in New York. Frankly, he wasn't looking like a superstar before the Holy Bull, but then the Holy Bull was just a big, eye-catching breakthrough performance. Comes back 8 weeks later for trainer Todd Pletcher, and I'll tell you what, there was absolutely nothing wrong with his Florida Derby.
There sure wasn't. He backed up that Holy Bull performance and maybe then some. He did have a very good setup, strike power and promises fulfilled just went gangbusters out of the gate, and because of that, Audible got a little farther behind than usual, which I think is a good learning experience. He got back to 8th place, more than 8 lengths behind, but when he got rolling, Brian, he again went right past that field, showed a nice turn of foot coming down the stretch, and I liked everything I saw from another Pletcher horse, his third now points-wise to qualify for the Derby.
Absolutely. And like Mendelssohn was a son of the deceased but top sire Scat Daddy, who's got some big ones this year. Audible's out of Into Mischief, and Into Mischief is only getting better and better as a sire. Now, Matt, this New York bred, I was impressed. You say he was helped by that suicidal first quarter of a couple in here, but I have every confidence that he would have been just closer to the pace if it wasn't as fast. I did see some things I liked in the running style, too, in that he was really asked out of the gate to get a forward position, but then he was able to quickly, after he did that, he was able to quickly relax for Johnny V after he saw what he saw going into the first turn. And then it seemed like whenever he pushed a button, when he wanted to move up on the backstretch, when he wanted to ask him to ultimately run on the turn, Audible truly did look like a push-button horse, which I think is a positive as we head into that huge field in the Kentucky Derby. Now, one thing I want to caution, I always throw in a little caution, just like I did with Mendelssohn. Sorry, my apologies. But I'm not sure how good this Florida Derby cast was. Catholic Boy came back having bled in the race, and the only horse that was bothering Audible at all down the lane, and little at that, was Hofburg, and Hofburg had only run twice. I think he's a very promising horse, but he was coming out of a maiden race. So there are questions about just what exactly Audible beat on Saturday in the Florida Derby.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, but you have to like all those different things that you pointed out that he did in the Florida Derby, things that he hadn't done before.
Mendelssohn, Audible, two of your favorites for the Kentucky Derby. Hopefully their health remains squeaky clean all the way up until the first Saturday in May, because those are two horses that will get a lot of play and very well could turn out to be a Kentucky Derby winner in 2018. But Matt, let's just hop off this Kentucky Derby trail, this trail that's heating up quickly, to talk about some other races. I want to go back to Dubai, because the Dubai World Cup, Matt, it's $10 million. The best dirt horse in the world was supposed to be West Coast going in. I don't necessarily think he isn't the best dirt horse in the world anymore. But he got smoked. He got smoked from the turn for home to the stretch. He got smoked by some Thunder Snow.
He sure did, Brian. And we all remember Thunder Snow last year was the winner of the UAE Derby and went to the Kentucky Derby and lost his mind coming out of the starting gate at the Derby, bucking all over the place. But, that was a bad experience, but it was interesting. From there, they took him back to Europe, and he had a darn good campaign the rest of his 3-year-old in 2017. Won some nice races, competed in Group 1 and Group 2 races over there, and put together a really, really nice campaign. Comes back here and just, like you said, destroyed that field. West Coast was sitting in nice position all the way around. We expected him to make a move from there, but he just couldn't match Thunder Snow.
Thunder Snow had that turn of foot, Matt, of a really good turf horse, and he is a really good turf horse. In fact, Thunder Snow, the Godolphin runner, is now a Group 1 winner at 2, 3, and 4. And of course, at 2 and 3, it came on the turf. Kentucky Derby was a non-race. He didn't want to run that day, whether it was the crowd, the rain, the storm, whatever. Interesting enough, he'll probably be back at 1.25 miles in Churchill Downs in the same starting gate for this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. So that'll be interesting to see Thunder Snow. Obviously, a very classy horse. Turn of foot, I think he was aided in a couple of ways in here, Matt. First off, North America, probably the horse with the most speed in the race going in. Broke slowly. That allowed Thunder Snow to take over the race. And the fractions were pretty darn pedestrian, which made everyone else in the race have to chase him. Now, having said that, West Coast was right there. He was breathing down his neck most of the way. And like you said, had every chance. But the turn of foot of the two was hugely in favor of Thunder Snow, and it became an easy win for him. West Coast held off Mubtahij, Pavel, Forever Unbridled. He was the best of the Americans, I guess. But it just didn't look like the best from West Coast.
No, it didn't. And, it's been a while since he won a race also.
Matt, I think we do need to mention the 5th place finisher, Forever Unbridled. She almost got 4th. She was battling Pavel down the stretch, not too far behind West Coast, and moved to Heesh. Forever Unbridled, very nice career, champion mare. She's off to broodmare duty, well-earned broodmare duty, and a career worth remembering. Forever Unbridled, and a good enough effort with very little pace in front of her in the Dubai World Cup.
Yep, she's a champion and gonna go out as a champion.
Now, Mind Your Biscuits is not yet a champion. I mentioned Audible is a New York bred. Mind Your Biscuits is also New York bred. It turned out to be a big weekend for New York breds outside of the Empire State. Audible winning the Florida Derby. Mind Your Biscuits winning the Golden Shaheen for the 2nd straight year, Matt. And if you remember, last year's was just a bomb of a performance. He engulfed the horses early in the lane and just cruised home. Beautiful winner. Lately, though, he hadn't won since July. He had lost 4 in a row. The performances weren't necessarily bad, but not quite like some of his earlier performances, including that Golden Shaheen of last year. And then he does this, man. And then he does this. This was Forgo-like, Matt. This was something that you don't see every day. I hope the fans out there watching us right now liked this performance, enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'm sure you did, because, I mean, at the 8th pole, he still wasn't in the picture. At the 16th pole, he was still well behind. I'm sure he closed in 10 and change. XY Jet and Roy H. are good sprinters, and for Mind Your Biscuits to get the money from where he was, pretty incredible.
It was a crazy, crazy stretch drive, Brian. Like you said, he's not even in the picture, and add to it that the racetrack was certainly a track that was not at a disadvantage being out on the lead. So he didn't have the track in his favor by any means, but Joel Rosario up on Biscuits, and I don't know, Joel is pretty good in those big closing moves, but he comes flying down the stretch, and like you said, you remember some of those efforts with Forgo. Those of you that were watching racing in the 70s, great performance by Biscuits. Not bad. Hey, win that race every year. Credit to Chad Summers for having him at the top of his game. And I still believe that Biscuits is better at 7 furlongs.
Yeah, that's probably true. He needs the race set up, and I think obviously he likes something about Maidan, whether it be the track surface, even though this wasn't playing as a come-from-behind surface, or maybe the surroundings, maybe the desert surroundings, the Maidan experience, if you will. Mind Your Biscuits obviously appreciates it. Matt, I think the word scintillating, maybe this is Dick Vitale's fault, is overused these days. But this performance by Mind Your Biscuits, getting there, 1976 Marlboro-esque. It was scintillating, Matt. I loved it. Mind Your Biscuits, good for him, good for the New York bred. On to America. I'm not ready to call Roy H. anything but the best sprinter still. I think he broke a beat slow, and he kept trying down the stretch. But this was all about the Biscuits, baby. Matt, I think there's little doubt that the most anticipated, talked about Derby prep this weekend will be out at Santa Anita. We have a bit of a showdown here. We have Bolt Doro, the horse who should have been the 2-year-old champion of 2017. You've heard me say that before, folks. Bolt Doro, good comeback race, head and head with McKinsey down the lane. There will be no McKinsey this time. He's missing a little time, but instead we get Justified, the super hyped horse out of Scat Daddy for Bob Baffert. Bolt Doro and Justify, Matt. Let's get this race on.
Yeah, it was McKenzie's problems that he's having now that caused Baffert to shuffle all of his remaining Derby horses, and that meant that Justify was coming to the Santa Anita Derby to run against Bolt Doro. I don't know, Brian. It's got to be those two. It's going to be an interesting race. The much talented, much hyped Justify is going to have a test in this one.
Absolutely, he's going to have a test, man. He's only running a maiden race and allowance race. Now he gets Bolt Doro, a multiple Grade 1 winner who's proven himself time and time again. I think Bolt Doro, Bolt Doro doesn't need this race. He only needs to peak for the Kentucky Derby. Meanwhile, Justify really does need this race. He's got no stakes experience. This is only the third race of his life. On the other hand, Justify might have more foundation in the last few months, given that Bolt Doro missed just a little time and only had the one race back. Obviously, both horses are really, really talented. I'm going to side with the horse that I've liked since the front runner, since last fall. I'm going to side with Bolt Doro. He's still my top pick for the Kentucky Derby. And I could see Justify beating him in here, and me still liking Bolt Doro in Kentucky. But both horses look to be working great. These are two really, really good 3-year-olds, Matt. It's shaping up as a better Kentucky Derby than maybe we thought it'd be a few months ago, with all these horses really looking good lately. But Bolt Doro and Justify, this is what horse racing's all about right here.
It sure is, and that's going to be a great matchup of those two. And like you said, Justify wins, Bolt Doro wins. You know, if Justify wins, the thing that concerns me is that he'll have 3 wins, but they're all going to be against really, really small fields. And in a way, I think I might have preferred to see him in the Arkansas Derby, where he'd be in a bigger field and have to, go through traffic maybe and deal with kickback and have a real learning experience, which finish first or finish second, he qualifies for the Derby. He's just not going to get that learning experience. So even if he wins at Santa Anita, I'm not going to anoint him a Kentucky Derby winner at that point.
Absolutely, Matt. That's a great point. I think as well, the Arkansas Derby might have been a better stepping stone for him. Now, I'm not saying there's any horses in there like Bolt Doro, but a bigger field and a new track, too. A track maybe a little bit more similar to Churchill Downs, I think would have been a good thing for Justify. That, of course, doesn't matter Saturday. He's going to get the small field. He's going to get one main competition in Bolt Doro. And like we've said, it's going to be a really interesting race. I looked at the other prospective starters. The only horse that intrigues me, and he does really intrigue me, is Instilled Regard. I can't pick him for anything better than third. He's certainly my third pick in here. But I think moving forward, the Son of Magnum Moon, if he can bounce back a little bit off a slightly dull risen star. But remember, he was lapped on Noble Indy late, and Noble Indy came back and won the Louisiana Derby. I think Instilled Regard is still an interesting horse moving forward to the Kentucky Derby. So he's third best in here. After that, I can't say there's a lot in here. Really should come down to the top 2, and I'm sticking with Bolt Doro.
I'll go with Justify.
There you go. All right, Matt, that's the Santa Anita Derby. Next, we're going to look to Lexington, Kentucky for the Bluegrass Stakes. So, Matt, you'll be joining me. I'll have the pleasure of having you here in Kentucky. I believe you're staying in the guest bedroom. We're going to go to the Bluegrass Stakes at beautiful Keeneland. Opening day is Friday. We're both excited about that. The weather looks a little iffy, I'm afraid to say, Matt, but the Bluegrass and the Cardiff Stakes we're going to see this weekend, there's no iffiness about that. The Bluegrass looks like a nice field. The horse I'm most interested, honestly, about is the 2-year-old champion, Good Magic. Fountain of Youth was not great. He was third that day, but I think he can bounce back for Chad Brown, and he'll face a full field and a bunch of intriguing horses here in the Bluegrass Stakes.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I'm excited to be going to Keeneland with you. Never been to the Bluegrass Stakes. We got a full field of 14 expected, a lot of interesting horses in there. Going to be a great day. Yeah, Good Magic coming back, 34 points, probably in the field already. Fountain of Youth third, probably Gulfstream is maybe not the best kind of track for him. I must admit, though, Brian, I'm a little less enthusiastic about Good Magic when I heard Chad Brown talking about the fact that Good Magic has had some foot issues. I never like to hear about horses running at this top level that have foot issues. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of performance we get from the 2-year-old champion.
I'm expecting a good performance from him. If he runs, I'm expecting a good performance from him at Keeneland. I think this will be a bounce back. Then we'll see about the Kentucky Derby. We'll see about his 100% feeling good at Churchill Downs for the big test. The others, Quip popped up with his first race of his 3-year-old season with a nice win, held off Flame Away, and both of those horses, top two from the Tampa Bay Derby, are coming back. Hard to say anything bad about Flame Away. It does nothing but run good races. So Quip and Flame Away will be back. Flame Away's won at Keeneland, by the way. There's some other interesting horses in here. Free Drop Billy, speaking of one at Keeneland, deserves another shot. He's a Grade 1 winner at Keeneland, having won the Breeders' Futurity here last fall. Sporting Chance. I'm not giving up on Sporting Chance. He didn't really get it done in 2 races in Arkansas, but they weren't bad performances. Maybe the Bluegrass of Keeneland and Kentucky will wake Sporting Chance up. I still think there's something under the hood there, Matt. Maybe Machismo, the Luch runner. He seems to have some talent. Cantaka, I'm not sure if Cantaka will be here or not, but if he is for West Point, I have a feeling he will be. He adds another level of interest. So it's kind of an interesting field. Even if you do like the favorite, I don't think Good Magic gets pounded at the windows on Saturday. And there's probably some horses with odds you can play with him, and that's what I'll be doing. Maybe a nice old Good Magic Sporting Chance exacta for me, man. Yeah,
Sporting Chance. If anything, for sure, the coach Dwayne Lucas is persistent, and he kind of drew a line through that Rebel performance, and hopefully we'll see better in there. I'm a little intrigued about Free Drop Billy. People have, I think, forgotten about him. He was third in the Gotham, second in the Holy Bull. Those are not races that are embarrassing by any means. And he ran big at Keeneland last year in the Breeders' Futurity. And Dale Romans is always dangerous. I think some decent odds might be there. I'd like Free Drop Billy in here a little bit. Quip also won an allowance race at Keeneland last year. So a really talented field and a lot of horses that have a good shot.
Yes, and it'll be interesting to see what the pace is like. I imagine Machismo will show a great deal more pace than he showed last time when he was unexpectedly rallying down at Gulfstream Park. And Quip, Flame Away could show speed, but Quip did show speed down at Tampa Bay. So if Quip is on the lead and he moves forward at all off that performance in the Tampa Bay Derby, he becomes a big threat. I want to see the good Magic, though, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian. I've been a fan of Good Magic, and I hope he comes back and runs big. It just adds another level to what you were saying about this Kentucky Derby field turning into a really, really nice collection of horses.
Absolutely. And Matt, there's one more on our Kentucky Derby prep preview list for Saturday. We did the Santa Anita Derby, the Bluegrass. We got to talk about New York and the Wood Memorial. The Wood Memorial, Matt, Aqueduct. I don't see any Secretariats in there or any Shams, maybe not even any Angle Lights, Matt. But we do have Enticed as probably a clear favorite, the impressive winner of the Gotham, and several other horses who will try to be getting big Kentucky Derby points in the Wood. Matt, I want to beat this heavy favorite in the Wood. How about you?
Yeah, that's my feeling too, Brian. He's already got 63 points. He's in the Derby field already, and with the shuffling of the Baffert horses, when the Wood lost Salamini and got Restoring Hope instead, it's gonna make the Kieran McLaughlin Enticed, who won the Gotham the previous stop on the Derby Trail in New York, going to make that horse a big favorite. And I wasn't that wowed by his performance in there, and he doesn't have to win this race. So I'm going to try and beat him in there. We've got Restored Hope in there from Baffert, who broke his maiden in early February in one of those restricted maiden races they've been doing at Santa Anita for homebreds or horses sold for less than $100,000. So people like that horse. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Pletcher has two possible in there in Marconi, who didn't run very well in the Fountain of Youth, but that's not a surprise, Brian. Gulfstream is not that kind of track for that big Tappet who likes to come from behind. He's done his best running at Aqueduct, and he's going to be back at Aqueduct. So he'll be a horse to watch. And Vino Rosso is also possible for Pletcher after winning his first two starts. And then I guess being a little disappointing in his two runs at Tampa Bay Downs. But, hey, Pletcher's loading up the gate in Kentucky. I wouldn't discount either one of those horses.
Absolutely, Matt. Enticed, now he's the Kentucky Jockey Club and the Gotham winner, a deserving favorite here, folks. I'm going to try to beat him here as well, though. I think he's not quite the horse that horses like Audible and certainly Boldoro and Magnum Moon and Mendelssohn and Justify probably are. So I'm going to try to beat that favorite. Restoring Hope, I think, is a good option. I imagine he'll get bet a little bit. He's kind of had a little bit of a strange schedule with only that one race a good 2 months ago. But as you said, the Son of Giants Causeway is well regarded out there. And I don't think Baffert would send him out here unless he really thought he had a good shot. So Restoring Hope is one of the ones. Another similar one, I think, is King Zachary, the son of Curlin out of the Dale Romans barn. He's just like Restoring Hope. He's getting better with every start. If you've seen his last two races at Gulfstream Park, he's obviously a colt with talent and an improving colt. And Romans, like he did with the filly Coach Rocks the other day in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, gets horses good this time of year. So I think King Zachary could be another one, just like Restoring Hope, coming out of Maiden Company to run a big race in here. And I do think Marconi is going to run a much improved race. I don't know if he wins. He hasn't won a lot in his young career so far, but I think he's going to run a much better race for the reasons you said. That the Fountain of Youth wasn't his type of race or type of racetrack at all. And he passed horses to be fifth in there, but I think you're going to see the real Marconi on Saturday. So I'd like to play Marconi with those two maiden winners, Restoring Hope and King Zachary, and hope that Enticed is actually out of the exacta. That'll be my play in the Wood Memorial, Matt.
That sounds good. We think we can bet that from Keeneland, huh?
Oh, we'll be betting, Matt. Don't worry about that. We didn't even mention Ferenzi Fire, but I think in the last few he's looked maybe just a shade below and maybe better at distances shorter than 9 furlongs. Yeah, those are the ones I like in the wood, Matt. And we talked about the bluegrass and the Santa Anita Derby. So, folks, you should be ready for another exciting Saturday, especially on the Kentucky Derby Trail here, as Matt and I will be. And we'll be together at Keeneland. So if you see us out at Keeneland, as Matt likes to say, stop by, shake our hands, say hello. We always like to see the HorseCenter watchers out there. Matt, any parting shots from you, sir?
Hey, you took the words out of my mouth there for the HorseCenter folks. Please say hello if you see Brian and I. We'll be out going for a walk around the beautiful grounds at Keeneland this weekend.
Absolutely. Sponsored Derby Wars. Thank you to them, the best contest site out there. As always, folks, subscribe to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation. I also want to remind everyone that Matt and I are still accepting new partners for our new venture, the Racehorse Partnerships. We're getting 2-year-olds in training this spring over at Derby Day Racing. Check us out over there. What am I forgetting, Matt? Anything?
I think you've covered it all, Brian.
Excellent. Well, that's another edition of HorseCenter in the books. Folks, we hope you enjoyed it. We can't wait to see you at the racetrack and to see you right back here next week for another edition of HorseCenter.